Good morning. Good morning. Okay. As we get settled, I'm going to start the the learning sponsors, and then we'll hopefully everybody will be up and on board. Okay. Learning sponsors: A Year of Learning by Sue and Arnie Garelick, in memory of Malka Pearl Mann and Philip Mann, and Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Rosner bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, and in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gidler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gidler, Charna bat Yeshaya. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Moinester, Nechama Asna bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigder, Lezecher Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A Month of Learning by Carol and Josh Sanborn, in memory of her father, Yehoshua Shia ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. David and Sharon Karpel, in memory of his father, Zev Moshe ben Shlomo Yaakov. Bee Pizer, in memory of her mother, Razel bat Shammai. The children of Grace and Julius Rosenzweig, Barbara Rottenberg, Ann Berezin, Judy Friedman, and Alan Rosenzweig, in memory of in honor of Roz Greenberg Haskell's special birthday. Mel and Haran Haller, in memory of his mother, Fega Bas Yaakov. Again, Bee Pizer, in memory of her stepfather, Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi. A Week of Learning by Tema Harrisburg, in memory of her husband, Suriel ben Rachmiel Halevi. By Sharon and Jerry Ness, in honor of Roz Greenberg Haskell's special birthday. By Mark Linder, in memory of his nephew, a soldier in the IDF who died in Lebanon, Eretz Paul ben Sirlos. By Jack Kaufman, in memory of his wife, Devorah Nechabat Mordechai Tzvi. Today is the 11th, therefore we have a day of learning plus Torah fund by Carol and Moshe Gassner, in memory of her father, Shlomo ben Mordechai Dov. And for Shabbos, we have a day of learning plus Shalashudas fund by Judith Weingarten Silber, in memory of her husband, Moshe Asher ben Shlomo Baruch. Also for Shabbos, a day of learning by Zahava Baum, in memory of her father, Naftali ben Arav Pesach Chaim Menachem. May the Shemitz have an Aliyah, Krank Rafil Velti Yashir Hashem Matzliah, and L'chol B'nai Israel a good Gaben Shtiyah.
Amen.
Okay, I'm going to apologize to those that were at the Siyum yesterday, because I'm going to do a little bit of the same introduction that I did yesterday this morning, as well, in order to help us go into our new Gemara Chagiga. Okay, Michael, I'm going to ask you when I finish up this short introduction, to say a few more words about Tuma and Tahara. Okay?
Wonderful.
Well, there's a reason why I'm asking that. Okay? No, I'm gonna
All right, I'll give it a shot.
just a brief word. Okay, the reason we're doing sort of two introductions this morning. I'm going to give a part of one. That's why I asked Michael to give another one. Is because Gemara Chagiga really deals with two themes. Theme number one, and that doesn't necessarily mean it follows through just in one parak, because the Gemara is going to be 3 prakim. Okay, deals with aspects of the Shlosh Regalim. What korbanos need to be brought in Shlosh Regalim. Okay, we're going to see that the Gemara talks about 3 varieties. Okay, one is Olat Re'iyah. Okay, the requirement to bring an offering of appearance. I'm going to translate it that way. Another is Olat HaRegel, an offering connected directly with the holiday. And a third is Olat Simcha, so to speak. Chagiga Simcha, rejoicing regarding the holiday, which is a Shalmei Shlomim. Okay, so 3 different korbanos, okay, that are expected to be brought on these holidays. I'm going to refer to the psukim momentarily.
2 of them might be individual.
Okay, so certain aspects there. Okay, who brings what? When can they bring it? Who, so on and so forth. Things like that, okay, are part of the discussion. Okay, the second aspect of the Gemara, the Masechet, is Tuma and Tara. Okay, and that's brought up, even though it's primarily in Perek Shlishi of the Perek. That doesn't mean it's the only place. So, Michael, while I get the psukim ready, just a couple words on Tuma and Tara, please.
Okay. I didn't know this was happening.
I know, that's
So we are not really familiar with Tuma and Tahira, because since the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, there's no possibility of becoming better. So we all are born and grow up and pass away in a state of Tuma. So we were not Nogea to us. But when there was a Beis Hamikdash, it was very intimately involved in everyone's life, because Kohanim, nobody could go onto the Har HaBayis and cross a certain line on the Har HaBayis if they were Tameh, and no one could. Kohanim couldn't serve if they were Tameh. They couldn't eat truma if they were Tameh. So people, and if you are Tameh, virtually everything you come in contact with also becomes Tameh. So if a person was today, our only remez of that is when women go to the mikveh, but they don't take their clothing with them. In the old days, if you were Tameh and you went to the mikveh, you also brought your clothes and you put your clothes in the mikveh. You took your bag and put that in the mikveh. It was very much involved. And even non-Kohanim would be people who were called Chaverim, would be noheg to eat all food in a state of Tahira. We have a remez of that at the Seder, where we wash our hands before we dip the karpas, because if food is wet, it can be matabel tuma. So we wanted it not to be tameh, so you wash your hands before you deal with the karpas. But they were constantly oseg in tuma and tahira. There are up to 5, if you're talking about touching levels of truma. If you're talking about truma, it's 4, I think. If you're talking about regular things, it's 3. And you put and then like if you wet food, it bounces up to a rishon. It's a very complicated inyan. But the important thing to remember is that people strove to maintain themselves in a state of tahira, and if they engaged in a certain personal activities, I mean, if you have beer with your wife, you have to go to the mikveh, and it was a major part of their lifestyle, which we can't comprehend. Is that covered?
Terrific. But it's important to us to have at least a grounding in that, to be able to appreciate the discussion later on in the Masechet. Yes, Alan.
Just a question, it's always bothered me. If we are always in a state of tumor, why do we wash Netilat? It doesn't accomplish anything.
It's a good question. Why wash Netilat Yadayim if we're
Because
always
that's a takanas rabbanan.
But it doesn't really accomplish anything. It's
It
still
takes
tumor.
away tuma shniya. It takes away a certain kind of rabbinic tuma, so that when you handle God's bread,
No, 100%, but we're still tummy.
that's correct.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's a takanas rabbanan. Maybe it's a reminder. And when they made the takana, it was before we were all tamei, and we've learned that you can't undo takanas. So even if the rationale for the takana goes away, the application stays in place, and
That'd be one
That's not
explanation.
completely so. You know, the truth of the matter is when you're making a Tfilas Yadayim in the morning, right after Moda Ani, which doesn't have God's
that's
name.
Nagelbas.
That's right. So, well, what it has to do with the tummy?
No, that has to do with shading.
No.
And
In either
touching
case, but it's a good question. Maybe we'll have a chance to move in that when we get more to the third parak.
God's name.
Okay? All right, so very quickly, I want to just cite a few psukim as we get into the Gemara for today. Okay? What basis do we have to bring these korbanos? Okay, and we just said that there are three of them. And again, I suggest if you use Art Scroll, look at the introduction that Art Scroll gives. It first discusses the three different kinds of offerings. Okay? But when we look in Devarim, actually, I'm sorry, in Shmos, in Mishpatim, okay, what do we see? We see here a specific pasuk, and the pasuk tells us basically as follows. It says, I'm sort of starting in Shmos, okay, Kaf Gimel, Shlosh Regalim Tachog Li B'Shana, 3 holidays. At Chag HaMatzot Tishmor, etc., etc., etc. Okay, it goes on then. Vet Chag HaKatzir, etc., etc., etc. Shalosh Pamim B'Shana Yeroeh Kol Zechorcha El Pnei Ha'adon. Right? So in other words, that pasuk that sort of comes to a little bit to summarize, okay, says 3 times we will be seen. So that gives us the basis of the fact of Olas Hariyah. Okay. Elsewhere, okay, we have another example, okay, of a pasuk. That this time it says to us, Vayaha makom asher yivchar Hashem Elokeichem bo l'shakein shmo sham shama taviu et kol asher anochi mitzaveh etchem olotechem zivchechem masrotechem shumat yedchem v'chol mevcha. So all of the various offerings that need to be brought there. Okay, so what offerings are brought? Okay, is the reasonable explanation, right? So elsewhere again, what does the Torah tell us? Okay, it tells us an example, Shiva Shavuot Tisporlach. Then it goes on, V'asita Chag Shavuot, etc., etc. V'samachta lefnei Hashem Elokecha, ata uvenecha v'evdecha. Okay, so that gives us the requirement of of rejoicing. And therefore that would mean another offering for that, the chagiga, right? Okay. All right, and then it goes on in another pasuk, Shivat Yamim Tachog L'Shem Elokecha B'Makom Asher Avtar, etc., etc. Shalosh Pa'amim, and then that Ki Varechecha Hashem Elohim Maseh Yadecha Vayita Ach Sameach. Shalosh Pa'amim B'Shana Yira'eh. Again, Yira'eh. Kol Zechor Chad Pnei Hashem Elohim B'Makom Asher Yivchar, and it spells out B'Chag Hamatzot, B'Chag HaShavuot, B'Chag HaSukkot, V'lo Yira'eh et Pnei, etc. Rekam. Okay, so the psukim clearly spell out, okay, that there are a variety then of offerings. All must be brought. Okay, they reflect this requirement for appearance before Hashem. It reflects the requirement of rejoicing. It reflects these kinds of things. So that naturally, the first question ought to be, who brings it, right? And that's where we're going to start now into our Mishnah and the Gemara, okay? So the text starts, Hakol chayavin b're'iyah. Everyone is obligated, says the Mishnah, in bringing this special offering of, translating it one way would be re'iyah, appearing is how Art Scroll likes to call it. The Koran, by the way, uses the exact same explanation. It's a korban of appearance, okay? So what happens? Who is the exception? Okay, chutz mecheresh, with the exception of a deaf mute, shoteh, a person who is not mentally competent, v'katan, and a minor, v'tumtum, and someone whose sexual characteristics are unclear, v'androgynous, and somebody who has, okay, sexual of both genders, okay? V'nashim, and women, va'avadim she'inam meshuchrarim, right? Servants who are not released, freed. Hachiger, somebody who is lame. V'hasuma, somebody who is totally blind. V'hacholeh, somebody who is sick. V'zakein, and the elderly. Okay.
How old is elderly?
Oh, good question. We'll have to see. We'll have to see if the Gemara addresses that. I don't want to answer it now because we saw earlier, it says the young, and it's going to have to address that first. Okay. And somebody who cannot, I'm going to phrase it this way, who will have the lack of mobility to be able to go all the way up to the Beis Hamikdash. Okay?
Now you can use your brother's scooter.
What?
Now you can use your brother's scooter.
Okay? So we're going to clarify that momentarily. Okay? All right. Ezahu Katan. First question the Mishnah asks. Steve. Kol she'eno yachol lirkov al ktefav shel aviv v'la'alot miYerushalayim lahar habayit divrei Beit Shammai. Cannot ride on his father's shoulders as the father walks up. Okay? Where is he walking up from? From the city up to the Temple Mount. Okay? Not necessarily a short distance.
Why not? Well, it's a hill, it's a steep hill.
Yeah. Okay? Why not what, Sid?
You're talking of that time of day and age. How far was the distance from that hill to go up to the top?
No, we're talking about from the city to go up to the.
So I could have taken a taxi.
No, you have to walk.
If I can go with the taxi up top from that.
It's, you know what fisalach is? It's with your fisalach, Sid.
Okay.
Why? We're going to see. We're going to see in a moment. Right? We're going to see in a moment. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Hold on. Ubei, I'm going to come back to. I didn't forget you. Ubeit Hillel Omrim, Kol she'eno yachol le'echoz biyado shel aviv. If the child can't hold their father's hand when they walk on their own holding the father's hand, V'la'alot miYerushalayim lahar habayit, going from Jerusalem, city environs, to the Har Habayit, Shne'amar Shalosh Regalim. And the phrase Shalosh Regalim has association with the word Raglayim. Okay? And therefore, that is the reason why Beit Hillel gives at least this particular. Okay? And if you have further questions, you can look at Art Scroll 2A1, note number 9. Okay? In that case. All right. Now, we get to a new topic. Okay, you're saying right now that we have to bring this Olat Re'iyah, right? We're saying we also know from the Torah we have to bring Shalmei Simcha. That's number 2. We have to bring what? Shalmei Chagiga. That's number 3. So we have 3 varieties of korbanos that have to be brought. Okay, who brings them? Okay, the individual usually brings their korban. Okay, it said everybody, with the following half a dozen or so exceptions. All right.
Does a family bring one or many? In other words, if you have a father and several sons of bar mitzvah age, does each one bring, or does the father bring for all?
Okay.
Everybody's supposed to
Okay.
bring, the others.
We'll see. Let's see if the Gemara addresses that. Okay, a good question. All right, but right now we're going to suddenly go in the Mishnah to a new topic. Okay, what's the value of those? Which is more significant in terms of its value? Okay, Beit Shammai Omrim Hari'iyah. Okay, we saw what that said. That was mentioned a few times, right? Shatei Kesef. Okay, that is a significant amount of money. It's 2 silver pieces. Okay, V'chagiga, the Shalmei Chagiga. Okay, that's another one of those 3 offerings, right? Me'ah Kesef. Me'ah Kesef is 1/6 of a dinar. Okay. Wow, what happens? Beit Hillel Omrim Hari'iyah Me'ah Kesef. Says Beit Hillel, no, the Olat Re'iyah is more significant. That's one, that's Me'ah Kesef.
It has to be more than Beis Shammai.
Right? And V'chagiga Shtei Kesef. That's the 2. Okay. Now, coming back from our Gemara to our Mishnah, right? Hakol, if you say everybody's involved and you just gave me a long list of exclusions, right? Okay, what do you mean everybody? Why did you have to say initially everybody?
Hakol always means one extra.
Okay, so who are we including? Well, it could be one extra, or it could be maybe, did we list all the exclusions? Or did we forget, said these are just examples of exclusions, and there may be others that for some reason the Tana didn't give. Let's see. Okay, we go on. La'atuye mai, to include who? La'atuye mi shechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin. What about including the person who's half a slave, half free? Okay, right? He's owned by 2 brothers. One brother's freedom, one brother didn't. Let's take that as a simple example, right? Okay, Ula Ravina, the Amar, and as for a Ravina, the Amar Misha Chetzio Eved, the Chetzio Ben Chorin, Partur Min Ariyah. He says, since he's Nishtahir, okay, he's exempt from Olat Re'iyah. Okay, so let's try it again. Hakol La'atuye Mai. Everybody includes who? Again, La'atuye Chiger B'yom Rishon V'nit Pashet B'yom Sheni. Maybe it includes somebody who was lame on the first day of the Yontif, okay? But on another day of the Yontif, okay, he was cured, capable of walking. Maybe that's the case. All right. So Gemara answers. That's acceptable to the one who holds that. I'm going to explain it a little bit this way. Tashlumin zelazeh, that one day is a fulfillment of another day. Okay. Ela lamanda amar kulan tashlumin derishon, but for all the different opinion, who says that all the days are such that one can fulfill the requirement of the first day, and that's what it satisfies. Akola tuyemai.
Therefore, if he was lame, he was pater.
Okay, so if he couldn't do it on the first day of he couldn't do it on the first day of the holiday. Okay, what about the other days? Doesn't have to worry. Okay, because maybe the Olas Riyah only applies if you're there.
There's a fundamental argument whether you have to bring an Olas Riyah every day of the Chag.
Any day of the Chag, or just the first.
Any day or the first.
And the other days are substitutes.
They make up, that's all. Okay,
But if you're pater the first day,
You
then
don't
you
have
can't
to.
substitute for
Right.
what you didn't have to
okay.
do.
So maybe let's try a different one. La tuye suma be'achat me'enav. Okay, to include somebody who's only blind in one eye. All right. Udelo ki hai tana. Then that would not be according to the following Tana, the Tanya who taught Rabbi Yochanan ben Dahavai, Omer Mishum Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, Suma be'achat me'enav, patur min ha're'iyah, that someone blind in one eye is exempt from the requirement of bringing Olat Re'iyah. Why? Shnei Amar, okay, Yera'eh, Yera'eh. Be seen, Gzeira
You
Shava.
will see as you are seen.
Right? Kederech Sheba Lirot, the same way he comes to see. Kach ba le'ra'ot, so he comes to be seen. Okay? Ma lirot b'shtei einav, the same way one normally sees with two eyes. Af le'ra'ot b'shtei einav. So he would be seen in by two eyes. Okay? V'bayit ema. And if you want, I would say as follows. La'olam kida'amrei me'ikara. It's really as we said originally. Namely what? With the kakash lachad Ravina. And that was problematic for Ravina, lo kasha. It doesn't necessarily have to be problematic. Why? Kan. The Mishnah Rishona. Here in one case, we're talking about the earlier position of Beit Hillel. Okay. Kan, the Mishnah Acharona. And in the other case, we're talking about a later version of our Mishnah, which says a later position of Beit Hillel regarding non-freed slaves. Okay. So what happens? Let's go on. Ditznan. As now we're given the text, okay? Mi shechetzio eved v'chetzio ben chorin, one who is half slave and half free man. Oved et rabo yom echad, he works for his master one day. Ve'et atzmo yom echad, and works for himself one day. Divrei Beit Hillel. That's the view of Beit Hillel. Amru lahem Beit Shammai, but Beit Shammai challenges them and says as follows, right? What does he say? As we go on to Amud Beis, right? Takanatam et ribo. Okay? Sure, you've answered. Are you satisfied? Okay, remedied is one translation. The status regarding his master, okay? Ve'et atzmo, but regarding himself, lo tikantem, you didn't remedy or you didn't adjust his situation, okay? Lisa shifcha, to marry a servant girl, eino yachol, he's not able. Bat chorin, eino yachol, to marry a free girl, also he's not able. Leaf tail, should we therefore say that he should remain single, unmarried, and as a result nullify the requirement of Peru Revu? That's the issue. V'halo lo nivra ha'olam ela lepiria urivia. But wasn't the world created primarily or clearly for the purpose of habitation? Okay. Shnema, as it's procreation, well, habitation
Well, you have to
requires
keep people
procreation
happy.
first, right? Okay. All right. Shnema lo ta'u bara'ah l'shevet yitzra ela mipnei tikun ha'olam kofin et rabo.
No, period.
Yeah.
Olam, period.
Tikun ha'olam. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Lo ta'u bara'ah l'shevet yitzra ela mipnei tikun ha'olam. Okay. So therefore, says the Gemara, kofin et rabo. Yeah, v'oseh oto ben chorin. Okay, so we force the one who didn't free him to free him,
And we build.
right? What do we do? V'kotev lo shtar al chatzi damav, and we write a document,
Now
okay,
you.
the right that says that the servant will ultimately have to pay back that particular master, right?
His value, half his
The value that he was for him, which was basically the half value, right? The Chazru Beit Hillel laharot kedivrei Beit Shammai, and therefore Beit Hillel changed their mind and they taught like Beit Shammai. So that would be the difference between an earlier view of Beit Hillel and a later view of Beit Hillel. Okay. All right. Let's go on now. Okay, the next part says we had this series of exceptions in our Mishnah. Chutz mechere shoteh v'katan, with the exception of the deaf mute, the mentally incompetent,
in the very young.
okay, and a real minor. Okay, Katani cheresh dumia deshotek katan. The Mishnah seems to teach, I'm going to say, that the deaf mute is similar to the mentally incompetent or the small minor. Ma shoteh v'katan delav b'nei de'ah. The same way the mentally incompetent and the small minor is not one who has clear cognizance of their activities. Okay? Afcheresh delav bar de'ahu. So likewise, it would seem to tell us that the deaf mute is not one who is clearly cognizant, okay, of activity. V'kamash malan keditznan. But here it comes to teach us in another Mishnah. Cheresh shedibro. Okay, right? Yeah, Cheresh shedibro. Chachamim bechol makom. Where it talks, okay, let me phrase it this way. Cheresh, when it refers to Cheresh, what were the sages talking about? Okay, in all these other places, she'eino shomea ve'eino medaber. That is someone who is neither capable of hearing nor speaking. In other words, a deaf mute. Okay.
Helen Keller.
Okay.
She wasn't mute.
She wasn't mute.
Helen Keller before the water.
Okay. Ha medaber ve'eino shomea. But here, if they can speak, but they cannot hear, shomea ve'eino medaber, or they can hear, but they can speak.
Cannot speak.
Okay, they hear, but they cannot speak. Chayav. Okay, they are obligated. Okay, so there is a distinction between a deaf mute, somebody who lacks both speaking and hearing, versus one who's only lacking one of those elements.
The Helen Keller is a terrific analogy because in those days, if you were both lacking speech and hearing, it would be pretty much impossible to communicate with you.
Right.
So you would not learn how to do mitzvahs. You wouldn't understand what's going on. And
Right.
that's why it's like a shota. But today, where there are medical, they can do implants or they have alternate teaching methods,
Right.
the halacha might be different.
Right. I lived in, I'm trying to remember,
St. Louis.
it was in St. Louis where there was a major institution that dealt with
Severely handicapped.
individuals who had speaking and hearing issues. Okay. And as Michael was referring to, there are a number of techniques that are used, both medical and educational, to work with it. Okay.
There was a blind guy in YU who got sniffed up.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Right. Okay. Tanina. Okay, or actually Tanena. We learned our Mishnah teaches what was said in the Braita. Laha the Tanu Rabbanan, as was taught in a Braita. Hamidaber ve'eno shomea, one who is able to speak but cannot hear. Zehu cheresh, that is one who may be considered cheresh, deaf.
The problem with that was I know one who was able to read lips.
Right. Okay. Shomea ve'eno midaber, he can hear but cannot speak. Zehu ilaim, that is somebody who is mute. Okay. Ze v'ze harehin kepikhin lechol divrei. This one and this one are considered pikhin. We could translate it a few ways. Competent would be a nice translation, right? For all things. Umimai de midaber ve'ino shomea zehu cheresh. On what is the basis, says the Gemara, that we say that one who can speak but cannot hear is considered deaf?
The question is because the same word is used. For
Right, we're
deaf
gonna get
mute,
to it in a
and it's
second.
ambiguity.
Shomea ve'eno midaber zehu ilaim. Why do, in that case of the Braita, that do we use two different terms, but the same term was used for somebody who was both deaf mute as well as somebody who was only deaf, right? Dichtiv, because it's written, Va'ani kecheresh lo eshma u'ke'ileim lo yiftach pi. Because we have a pasuk in Tehillim that tells us that there are two different statuses. Ve'ibayit ema, and if you want, I might say, Kida Amre in She, as people suggest in the popular conception, Ishtakil Milule, that his speech was taken from him. Midaber ve'eno shomea. Shomea ve'eno midaber chayav. We come back to that Braita and clarify it. Vahatanya. Aren't we taught elsewhere in another Braita? Midaber ve'eno shomea, if he's able to speak and cannot hear. Shomea ve'eno midaber, and or hear and not speak. Patur, that he's exempt. Amar Ravina ve'itema Rava. It says Ravina, and others say it was Rava. Chasuri michsura v'hachi katani. Something is missing, and this is how we should teach it. Hakol chayavin b're'iyah. All are obligated regarding appearance.
Rekia ubesim.
Ubesimcha. Excuse me. And in rejoicing. Chutz micheresh hamidaber ve'ino shomea, with the exception of the deaf person who can speak but can't hear. Shomea ve'eno midaber, or who can hear and cannot speak. shepatur min hariyah, that in that case they are exempt from the olat re'iyah. The afal pi shepatur min hariyah, and even though they're exempt from the olat re'iyah, chayav b'simcha. Okay, they are required to bring shalmei simcha, peace offerings celebrating the rejoicing.
Becomes your food on Kol Hamoed.
Okay, all right. So what happens now? We go on, right? Ve'et she'eno lo shomea velo medaber. But the one who can neither, thank you, the one who can neither, okay, she'eno lo, neither can hear nor speak, vishote v'katan, and the mentally incompetent, and the small minor, patur af min hasimcha, that individual is also exempt, right, from the shalmei simcha, right? And then the Gemara goes on, ho'ilu puturim mikol mitzvot ha'amurot b'Torah, since they are exempt from all other commandments in the Torah. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a Braita that tells us this as well. Hakol chayavim b're'iyah, all are obligated with the olat re'iyah, uvesimcha, and the shalmei simcha, chutz micheresh hamidaber ve'eno shomea, with the exception of the deaf person who speaks but cannot hear, shomea ve'eno medaber, or who hears but cannot speak, shepturin min ha're'iyah, that they are exempt from the olat re'iyah, v'af al pi shepatur min ha're'iyah, even though they are exempt from the olat re'iyah. Let's go over just a tiny bit, okay, to the top of Gimel. Chayav b'simcha. Okay, they are obligated in the shalmei simcha, right? Ve'et she'eno lo shomea. And as regards to the one who cannot hear, velo medaber, and cannot speak, vishote v'katan, and is mentally incompetent or a small minor, paturin af min hasimcha, they are exempt also from the shalmei simcha. Why? Ho'il upturin mikol mitzvot ha'amurot b'Torah, since they are exempt from all of the commandments said in the Torah. And we're going to stop right there for
May
today.
they appear even though they're exempt?
What?
Steve's question is, could they appear even though they are exempt?
They're patur.
They're-
It doesn't say
that's
patur.
right.
Okay, that's my last-
All right? It's,
I mean,
that's,
you
it
bring
says
your little kids with you. They don't
patur,
have-
but not a
The
sur might
thing
be
is,
one.
You have 3 children, 2 teenagers and an infant. The children have to bring their own re'iyahs, the older children, but
Right.
the baby does not. And when it says they're all mechuyev in the shlamim, because you have to eat them kol hamoed. And that's what you eat. You eat the korbanos that you are not with.
Yeah,
Can you clarify, kol mitzvahs ha'amorot b'Torah?
yeah.
What were you referring to?
Everything.
What about there's a young boy who can hold his father's hand?
Kol mitzvahs, which
His father is